Right, this video is going to talk about causation. So quite a nice structure to causation. First point to consider is what is causation? Well, you have to prove, the prosecution have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant caused the end result. And I would then say, number one, there has to be factual causation. What is factual causation? This considers the but-for test. But for the defendant's actions, the end result would not have happened. And that is the case of White. Legal causation. What is legal causation? Well, the defendant has to play a significant part in the end result. What is meant by significant? The case of Kimsey says it means more than a slight and trifling link. In other words, more than minimal. So you have to prove factual and then legal causation. Now, the defendant is going to try and claim that there has been an intervening act which breaks the chain of causation. They are unlikely to be successful. Potential intervening acts that you could talk about are as follows. So first of all, the thin skull rule. You must take your victim as you find them. So in Blau, he stabbed a Jehovah's Witness. She refused a life-saving blood transfusion. He was still guilty of murder. It does not break the chain if you have a pre-existing medical condition. Now, talking of medical conditions and medical treatment now, if the medical treatment is so bad and it's so independent from the defendant's initial actions, it will break the chain. So in the case of Jordan, bad medical treatment did break the chain because they gave him a drug, he was allergic to it, and then they reintroduced that drug and gave him even more, and his stab wounds had nearly healed, whereas in Smith, the stab wounds were still a large part to do with why the defendant died. So medical treatment will only break the chain if it's really bad. Doctors switching off life support machines. Malcherek said that this will not break the chain of causation, which I think is very sensible, because why are doctors in that position to switch off the life support machine? They are in that position because the defendant has done something to put the victim there. The next issue is the victim escaping. So if the defendant attacks or threatens the victim and the victim injures themselves, will the defendant be responsible? In the case of Roberts, our defendant sexually assaulted the victim. She jumped from a moving car and broke her leg. He said, well, I didn't push her. She jumped. Courts turned around and said it was a reasonable reaction. Therefore, it does not break the chain of causation. And then finally, the victim's free will. Case of Kennedy. So in Kennedy, the defendant gave the victim a drug. Victim injected themselves with the drug. They had free will. So the victim's free will broke the chain of causation and the defendant was not guilty. So some really quite memorable cases there, which are interesting, and hopefully that should make it easier for you to learn.